And as I said, I just think there's a lot of manipulation of the information, and that manipulation of the information tends to fall apart a little bit when you really put the microscope on it. It's not great research. Some of it was really old. Some of it was done like Nautilus leg press, Nautilus decline chest, lat pull down. You know what I mean? It's like there really isn't a really substantial body of knowledge on testing elderly clients in the power lifts. But there's a lot of people misapplying research into other areas. And there's a study that said Shaw et al. And one of the things they talked about was that only 2 people out of 32 got injured. It was only 6% injury rate. That's not bad, right? 2 out of 32. That means if you had 2 groups of 16 that you trained, so you got two small group training sessions, and in each one of those training sessions, 1 person got hurt, that wouldn't be good, right? Even though you might look at that number and say, well, statistically, not very many people got injured. I would look at that and say that number's too high.
Hey, everybody, I'm your host, Anthony Renna. Welcome to episode 430 of the Strength Coach Podcast. We're talking about relevant topics with top coaches in the fitness industry to help you become a better strength coach, trainer, therapist, or business owner. Brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. Don't forget, they announced the dates of the functional training summits this summer. First one will be in Chicago. I'll be there June 18th to the 20th. Long Beach, July 9th to the 11th. And Providence, August 20th to the 22nd. Always a good time. Lots to learn, new people to meet. Check it all out at performbetter.com. All right, today we have on Coach Boyle. We're going to continue that discussion about adults lifting heavy. I know we've been doing this for a couple episodes, but he got a lot of engagement on Instagram. So I just kind of wanted to continue the conversation about really where maybe the message is getting misrepresentative. And we're going to talk about the lens that he's looking through and really who the demographic he was really talking about, which was adult females. And it's kind of gotten into just really general adults, all adults. Also, for the Business for Unicorns Fitness Business Power Play, Mark Fisher's on. He's going to talk about AI, the good, the bad, and the ugly, but it's really just a preview. They're going to do a 90-minute webinar. It's going to be free, February 12th. Mark did an exhaustive deep dive on how the best gym owners are using AI. There's good stuff and there's bad stuff, obviously, and how maybe it can make you, kind of really hurt your business. So it's a free webinar. The link is going to be in the show notes. It's going to be February 12th. Check out businessforunicorns.com as well. They have a ton of free resources, not for just for gym owners, for all trainers. So here's Mark Fisher to tell you more about it.
Welcome to the Business for Unicorns Fitness Business Power Play. In each segment, we give you one actionable tip to help you build a gym and a life you love. And if you find value in today's Power Play, I'd invite you to go to businessforunicorns.com or click the link in the show notes, particularly because today you have a free webinar coming up that you're not going to want to miss. It's happening on February 12th at 11 a.m. And that is on the topic of today's tip, which is all about how should fitness businesses be using artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is everywhere, though. It seems that the whole society is goo goo gaga for AI. And I have a hot take warning for you. I think right now, AI is one, completely overhyped. I think a lot of people are wasting a lot of time doing things that don't need to be done at all and ultimately are not that good. And 2, I still think it's kind of underhyped, right? So marketers and AI companies love to make over-the-top claims when they're selling things. But for many fit pros and gym owners, AI can actually be a trap. In fact, I think a lot of fitness pros and gym owners are losing time by leveraging AI to, in some cases, work on things that don't need to happen at all. I think the core principles of time management still hold here. I think the first thing we need to ask is, does this thing that we're doing even need to be done in the first place? And all of this is to say nothing of the horrible and generic AI copywriting and images, which, by the way, I wouldn't say it's strictly wrong, but I can speak for me. And I think for a lot of people, when we see obviously AI created stuff that feels a little AI sloppy, and the writing in a given email or social media caption seems obviously composed by AI, I frankly find it a real turnoff. And I think it's hurting you because more so than ever, I think there's a lot less trust in the marketplace and people are going to be turned off by businesses that are relying heavily on AI. I don't think it makes you look forward looking. I think it makes you look off-putting and not human. All that to say, It doesn't mean that it's not useful for a lot of stuff, right? And it doesn't mean that your competitors aren't already using it. And since it's getting better every few months, we can't afford to pull the covers over our eyes here, right? We have to be paying attention because everything is evolving. At the time of this recording, the past few months, we've seen a number of updates to the major large language models that have really unlocked some new capabilities. And the best gym owners are using AI on an absolute daily basis to both save time and get better results. But you might actually be surprised by some of the things they don't do. And you might be surprised by some of their use cases, particularly when we talk about some of the non-gym related things that are probably very valuable, but are maybe a little bit more related to our personal lives. So at any rate, I recently did a very exhaustive research project on how the best gym owners in the industry are currently using AI in 2026. And I'm sharing what I learned in a free online training. It is happening on Thursday, February 12th at 11 a.m. It's going to be about 90 minutes long. I'm going to unveil everything that I learned by interviewing and getting actual reports from the AI, the gym owners, of how they're actually using. I will help you avoid the missteps and not spend time doing, as my buddy Vince Gabriel would call, fake work, where you feel like you're working, but it's not moving the ball forward. And I'll help you zero in what are the things that are impactful. They're going to help you make more money, help more people, and build a gym and a life you love. You just have to sign up at the link in the show notes. It should be available right now, and I sincerely hope to see you there.
All right, guys, now it's time for the strengthcoach.com and MBSC.TV Coaches Corner with Coach Boyle, strengthcoach.com, articles, videos, and certainly the longest running form in strength and conditioning and fitness. You can try strengthcoach.com out for 7 days for free. Go to strengthcoach.com to start your free trial. You can also get a free trial at MBSC.TV. You're a fly on the wall at MBSC with staff meetings, programs, seminars, and in-services from top coaches. You can try that out for 7 days for free at MBSC.TV. Coach, how you doing?
And I am doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. We actually started on the podcast about the lift heavy thing in December, and then you had posted some other stuff, and it really blew up. And I kind of wanted to just talk to you really quick. There was you had posted something on strengthcoach.com and you know, Substack as well, and it was really like about semantics, and I wanted to get into that in the language, maybe naming exercises. We said we would save that for this episode as well, last episode. The argument about training heavy, and I wonder if it's just a sign about, you know, the generation or what social media has done to us. But do you think people just kind of read the headlines, they make their assumptions without really looking at maybe what lens you're looking at or what the actual demographic is? Because originally you were talking about adult females. And I think people get confused because you're Mike Boyle, the legendary strength coach for all these teams. And then, you know, now you're talking about a lot of adult population. Do you think that's where a lot of this gets, you know, based on all of these comments that you saw, you talked about who is the biggest problem was the shirtless 25-year-old power lifters who were kind of giving you the hardest time about this. But do you think it's just really a matter of semantics, of a matter of misreading who you're really speaking to?
I would say to some degree, yes. And then I would say to some degree, no. I think there are certain kind of, and I guess I would call them contrarians because they're contrary to what I think, but there's certain people out there in the fitness field who are looking for a fight on, you know, on the internet sort of thing. And they're constantly out there. And that's why I said it's really funny. If you look at the profiles, there again, one thing that was very distinct was that most of the people who had the negative posts were younger. Most of them were competitive lifters. Most of them did post pictures with their shirts off. And it was really funny that they got really offended, but they kept doing it. It was almost as it was making me laugh because it was making me laugh and other people on the post laugh because it was like a caricature in terms of this guy would get angry, post, and then I would go back and click on his profile. And the first picture would be like him doing a shirtless heavy back squat. And you're just thinking, you're just proving my point here that, so what you get, and this, I'm deciding, I haven't posted this one yet, but one of the posts that I'm contemplating putting up is asking people, are we the only field where younger people in the field are openly disdainful of older, more experienced people. I think it's a very interesting phenomenon. When I look at other fields, I don't think you see that maybe in law or in medicine or in a lot of other fields where people with very, very limited experience are openly disdainful of people with significantly more experience than they have. And I think it speaks to the general insecurity of our field. I always say that a lot of people go into this because they're looking to feel better about themselves. They want to be bigger, they want to be stronger, they want to look better. And then when they do, that element of their personality doesn't go away. And it was really funny. Went on one guy that was arguing. I literally clicked on his profile, and then I happened to click on his story, and he was documenting the number of times he had called his congressman. He was on like 20. And it just kept saying 18th call, 20th call, and it just kept showing him. And I'm thinking, and I don't even know what he was calling about. It was some political ranting post, but I just was thinking, wow, this guy he's just super adversarial, super confrontational. And I think those are the people that come out of the woodwork. If you're like that barbell guy, like that guy that believes in squat, bench, and deadlift, then I really, again, to be very 2025, I'm very triggering for these people. And as somebody dubbed it beautifully, Boyle derangement syndrome. And there are
Oh,
a lot of people out there who have Boyle derangement syndrome. Whatever I like, they hate. Whatever I come out in favor of, they're against. And it doesn't matter what it is. I could come out for the squat tomorrow and they'd be on team unilateral as soon as I came out for the squat. So I think there's just a lot of people out there who think that they're scoring points with their demographic when they're confrontational with somebody like me.
yeah.
And
I
it's
also,
internet tough guy stuff, really.
yeah. And I do think that there is an element of, and people will accuse you of this too, right? Is there is an element, and it's done by the best in this business, in the social media business, of actually creating controversy for those comments, for because the engagement is what now turns it back into the algorithm and says, hey, did you see what's going on over at Mike Boyle? And so it sends new people. I'm sure you get those analytics of like, you have a new follower based on this reel or that reel, right? You've seen those.
Yeah, and my views, like, it is crazy. I did not intend, excuse me, to create a deliberately confrontational post. I was just trying to clarify my thoughts. And it was in reaction to all of these, and it was basically, like you said, it was basically looking at the older female population. There's been a lot of the lift heavy shit stuff out there, a real lot, too much in my mind. So I thought, I'm just going to try to clarify that we need to think more about heavy. And I was kind of trying to define for people, okay, 4 reps is 90% and above, 5 reps, 5 to 10 reps tends to be 80 to 90 or 77 to 87, somewhere in that range. Again, seemed super logical to me. And if you looked at it, like John posted positively, John Rusin posted positively. Like, there are all these people that posted positively, but the people that posted negatively tended to be, I think, younger, less experienced people, and or people looking to take advantage of the controversy. I think there were two classes of people there, probably
Yeah.
simultaneously.
I also think for some of them, they truly believe it, obviously, and they're just saying, no, you're wrong. But I feel like this is 20 years ago when like treating the quote unquote senior, right, wasn't really as big of a thing as it is now. Like, people understanding, hey, this population is growing and there's a lot of money to be made in this population. But 20 years ago, we were talking about kids, right? And what was the big thing? You can't put the adult program into the kids program, right? It's not, you can't just treat kids as mini adults and go, hey, we're going to do exactly what we do. And I feel like they don't understand, like, you can't do the same thing with your that with your the adult population that you're doing with your young and your athlete population. I think it's a little bit, they don't really truly understand it.
And I don't, honestly, the hard part about it is I don't think they will until one, they've trained a significant number of older people or they've gotten older themselves. And that's, I always say, and that's why people always, I think, I can't even, some of the things I was accused of, I had to look them up in terms of, I was kind of like, oh, that's an appeal to authority. I'm like, all right, I got to look up what exactly is appeal to authority. And basically, it's one of these things where they've just decided that you get no experience credit anymore in strength and conditioning. If you try to take credit for your experience, then it's just that appeal to authority, like, oh, I'm older, I'm smarter, and that's honestly in a lot of cases it's true. I am more experienced. I have trained more people. The guy from Barbell Medicine came out and said, I've trained as many people as Mike Boyle. And I'm like, I have a hard time believing that. I'd say that guy's in his 40s, maybe early 40s. It would be really hard for him to have trained as many people as me. He was in med school. I looked him up. He was in med school in 2016. Right? It means he's been training people at most 9 years, right? I'm at almost 45 years, and a good percentage of it in collegiate strength and conditioning, where you got a lot of clients, and then another significant portion of it in a business that has a really high volume of clients. So I'm kind of like, I don't know if you've trained as many people as I have. So I don't think that's the best, I guess, um, the best argument track to take. And then when you look at someone like him and say, barbell is in the name, right? Barbell medicine. I'm assuming they're going to be pretty pro barbell, right? Like that would seem pretty logical. And so I look and think he's the type of guy. He said, "Oh, I said in the comments that I'd be open to debating Mike Boyle." And I thought, one, why would I debate you? Like, why would I help you to enhance your business too? And two, you don't even get my email or politely ask or send even an Instagram direct message. You somehow say you posted in the comments. So it's, like I said, I think there was some people just trying to make some hay here with the idea that, hey, watch me. I went after Mike Boyle. I did a video where I went after Mike Boyle. I saw there was another guy. I think he called me Bike Foil. It literally said, Bike Foil says, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty sneaky. I would never have thought you were talking about me. And so, but he's another, and then some of these guys are. One guy literally was his like bio was cookie aficionado. I'm not even kidding, cookie aficionado, and I'm like, okay, you're absolutely positively qualified to talk about strength and conditioning and training elderly populations or whatever it is. And then two of the other guys are guitarists. It's like when you look at the profiles, it's crazy when you really, and you know me, I can't resist a good argument, and then I can't resist really digging into the argument further and looking and saying, okay, who are these people that I'm arguing with, and is there merit? Because if there's merit to the point, I did a lot of research this week on one rep max testing, because the guy from Barbell Medicine had said that there's actually a lot of research on max testing with elderly people, and that it's substantial research, and that it all shows that it's all safe. And I started looking at it, and it was like, God, like it's not great research. Some of it was really old. Some of it was done like Nautilus leg press, Nautilus decline chest. Another one the study was done on lat pull down. Do you know what I mean? It's like there really isn't
Yeah.
a really substantial body of knowledge on testing elderly clients in the power lifts. But there's a lot of people, I think, misapplying research into other areas. And one of the things I brought up, there's a study which said Shaw et al. And one of the things they had talked about was that they said, the only two people out of 32 got injured. It was only 6% injury rate. And I thought, that's not bad, right? 2 out of 32. But then I said, that means if you had two groups of 16 that you trained, so you got two small group training sessions, and in each one of those training sessions, one person got hurt, that wouldn't be good, right? Even though you might look at that number and say, well, statistically, not very many people got injured. I would look at that and say that number's too high. If I had one in each group of 16 or two in one group and none in the other, I'd say that was too high. I'd say 0 is the right number. So there's just a lot of this, what I would call, figures lie and liars figure. People love to grab research and say, hey, I got research that shows this. And then you really peel back the research and you think, it's not,
Yeah.
it's not super compelling research.
Yeah, it is funny. I saw that post that you put and I thought, man, if I only have 16 clients and somebody got hurt, and I guess we can define what hurt means
Well,
in the
this
session.
the interesting thing was he said in this particular study, one was a back injury and one was a rib fracture. So they were
Rib
hurt.
fracture.
Yeah, like they were hurt. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what was interesting. A study I posted 2 days ago about weightlifting, safety of weightlifting. And I'm going to actually read you because I think this is really interesting, but I want to make sure that I'm accurate. Sorry. Um, because this is very, very interesting. Injury incidence was low, but injury prevalence was high when defining injury as a painful condition that impairs training or competition.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Now you're like,
Yeah.
now you're back into the semantics thing that we talked about. Now you're into like splitting hairs. Injury incidence was low in terms of, hey, there wasn't a lot of really bad shit. We didn't have a lot of broken bones. But if you define injury as, oh, that hurt, and I didn't feel great the next day, then the numbers were high. You know what I mean? So this is my thing. When you really examine it, I'm examining. I don't love to lose an argument, so I tend to dig in a little bit. And I did really dig into some of this research, and you look and think, hmm, it's not great when you really, or I guess it's not compelling when you really look at it.
Yeah, but it depends on, like you said, how could somebody think, oh, only two people, that's not bad. I would be beside myself if somebody got hurt in. I
That's my
remember
point. But statistically, they're saying it was only 6%. Like we only had a
yes,
6% injury rate. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay.
yeah,
uh, And you just have to look at it and say, what's 6%? Like, I always go back, like you're in the bar business, right? If you said, oh, we're only losing 6% to theft every night, you'd be like, oh, we're doing great. That's not that bad. And then you think about what that is, on the course of your revenue over the course of the year, and you start looking like, oh, we lost a lot of money. It's significant. And I think you get into the idea of statistically significant. And that's what a lot of these people fall back on, is that it was statistically significant or statistically not significant. And that isn't really looking at, as I said, the essence of the study. When you look at a study and said that people tested in max lat pull down didn't get hurt. Who the hell does max? You know what I mean?
yeah,
And another one was max leg extension. And when you start looking at some of these, and they're being brought up by the barbell proponents as indication that heavy low rep barbell lifting is safe. And then they say safer than contact sports. And you think, well, it's a non-contact sport. It should be safer than contact sports. Like working out in the gym should be safer than football, right? Or that, you know what I
yeah.
mean? That would be logical. And as I said, I just think there's a lot of manipulation of the information, and that manipulation of the information tends to fall apart a little bit when you really put the microscope on it, which is, again, what I have been doing the last couple of days. The bad part is, if you're going from an engagement standpoint, much lower engagement. People aren't concerned about the details. They're concerned about the controversy. So,
Yeah, they are. And then again, like you look at where which topics, and then then you can keep going with it like you were doing with some of those things, and just kind of breaking up those ideas and then using those as posts, and people were just kind of kept jumping on it and said, "Oh, now he's saying this," and it was really all along the same topic, but
right.
it was interesting.
And like you said, then there's a lot of people were extrapolating it to athletes, and people were saying, guys were like, oh, if this is how you train athletes, and it's like, no, 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 no. This is nothing. Again, people don't even take in the context. They don't read the other comments. They don't read the actual post. There's so much, because again, with most people, they just want to jump in like, hey, it's like, hey, we're fighting with Mike Boyle on this post. And then people jump in and say something, and you think, oh, I answered that 20 comments ago 5 times, and you just jumped into this thing, and you have zero context.
Yeah,
So
and that's early strengthcoach.com arguments were always really good because people would talk about context. Well, who are we talking about? Or you heard a lot, it depends. Who is the person that we're talking about? When you're talking about an adult, and we talk about this all the time, what's the best program for an adult? 3 by 52, 3 times a week, 52 weeks. And they don't need to be on the edge of possibly getting, you don't need to take them there. Their bar graph is much slower as it progresses. We don't have an event coming up 90% of the time with these people, unless they're running a triathlon or some kind of an event like, the outdoor obstacle course ones or whatever. But it's funny how they just kind of put that lens on that adult population when you don't really need to do that.
Right. No, and that's exactly it's really interesting you talked about. I have to find this piece. Like I said, I actually did a little a short podcast. It actually ended up being a little bit longer with Rich Ulm. Richie speaks at Perform Better.
Yeah.
Uh because he was like, "Oh, I'd love to talk to you about this sort of, don't lift heavy kind of thing that you're going into." And one of the things that he talked about, and I'm gonna make sure I quote it. An athlete cannot accurately evaluate her effort without knowing her limits. So it is important that an athlete find and know her limits. This task comes with risk. Finding the line requires crossing the line. And that's the key line, right, in the sentence. Finding the line requires crossing the line. Because if I say to somebody, I want you to do a heavy set of 4 reps, the only way I know it's a heavy set of 4 reps is if you get 3. Right?
Yeah.
Because then I know, okay, hey, you could do that for 4. You did that for 3. I know where we're at. And that's the problem with this idea. And Rich, in this little article that he wrote, he had written it for the DNS newsletter or something like that. I thought he really described it really well, like why's my line at 5? My line's at 5 because I'll get the occasional 4 in my pursuit of 5, right? And that's the difference. If I move that line to 4, I'm going to get the occasional 3. If I move that line to 3, I'm going to get the occasional 2. So at some point, you've got to draw the literal line in the sand and say, okay, this is the lowest number of reps that I want. Lowest number of reps that I want for our adults is 5. Meaning that when I'm searching for that, I might get a 4, but I probably won't get a 3. And if we think again, we talked about this last podcast, but when people argue the fact that, I just can't believe that they argue that you're more likely to get injured with a lighter weight than a heavier weight. That's just so incredibly counterintuitive. And I don't think that anybody that lifts weights would make that argument. I don't think anybody would say, yeah, I'm way more nervous about a heavy set of 10 in the squat than I am about a heavy double. I just, again, and I talked to, like I said, Rich was a really good lifter. Rich was a world-class thrower. And when you talk to these people who've either been world-class athletes themselves or coach world-class athletes, you get a lot more agreement than you get from these people who are what I would call armchair fitness enthusiasts, coach themselves, whatever it is.
Mike, just let's finish on this with, if you want me to get 5 and I can only get 4, I get 4.5. What's the difference? Isn't that 4.5? Aren't I going to be like, isn't that a lot of potential for me to get hurt going from 4 to 5? I might be doing things that I might be moving around. I might, right? As opposed, like, how is that different from, doing a single that's really hard as opposed to 4 to 5 and I can't even get the 5th one up and I did 4.5?
The difference is the percentage of your max that you're going to lift. If you're getting stuck, if you're missing your 4th rep, more than likely you have 92% of your max on the bar or in your hands or whatever it is versus 100. Again, I think when we think about the system failing, I'm more concerned about the system failing with 100% load than I am with the system failing with 75% load. I think that's the fundamental difference. And that's why, again, I listened to the barbell medicine thing, and he was talking about, as you do more reps, your degrees of freedom get limited. And I thought, I don't even think that's true. But I can say in my own experience, I don't think I have ever seen a significant injury with somebody doing between 5 and 10 reps. I just have not seen it. I have seen injuries at 4 or less, and really in that 3-2-1 category. When people miss, you get like messy, ugly misses, and misses where your spotters really become important. And so I just look at that stuff and think that to me is the high risk zone. Why would I go there with an adult? I'll go there with we maxed in the bench press yesterday with Mark and his friends. I have no problem with that. I'm not worried about a 21-year-old kid missing a bench press rep. They're get great again. Great tissue quality, great recovery ability, great resilience. I'd be really worried about that if you had a 65-year-old client and you told me that was what you were going to do. I would be like, I don't, we can just project off a 5 RM or a 10 RM or whatever it is. If that guy said, hey, I benched 135 and I got 10 and the 10th one was really hard, I'm like, okay, I can project your max out pretty darn close if that's what I'm really interested in finding out.
I remember Dan Baker. I haven't heard a lot about him lately, but I haven't followed him. But remember, he was on the podcast and he was talking about they don't have a lot of the same kind of discussions or issues in Australia because personal trainers are one track and strength and conditioning coaches are another, and they don't really jump into each other's territory. And the way you advance through the strength and conditioning is through apprenticeship and mentorship. And so exactly kind of what you were talking about. So now you got the guy who's at level 4 or 5, let's call it, I don't even know, I forget what it was, but level 4, and everybody's looking up to, that, which would be somebody like you. It's like, and I think people that really train athletes, we're the ones who are looking at you and saying, oh yeah, this is what Mike would do, and I tried this, or this is what Mark did, or Al Vermeil. And that's why we revere these type of people, because we're working with those athletes as opposed to, kind of thinking about, just train, like I'm training a little bit of adult, a little bit of athlete, et cetera. They don't have that problem there because they have those different tracks.
Right. And again, here we've got our tracks are crossing all over the place in terms of we have recreational people who want to give advice to professionals, right? And all it matters, it's basically if you've got a profile and a handle, you can jump into these conversations and start arguing. And if you've trained a few people or whatever, you train yourself, you can jump into these conversations and start arguing. And then if you're good at it, and you're good at social media, you can actually create a persona. That's why when I look at some of these people saying, when they look and say, okay, we've had equivalent careers, whatever, trained the same number of people, I look and think, I'd really like to sit down and you hate to have that, let's compare resumes, but I think in some of these situations, it is a situation of saying, okay, let's compare resumes in terms of how many years have you been in the private sector? How many years were you in the collegiate sector? How many years were in the professional sector? You know what I mean? How many years have you worked at the Olympic level? How many years? And again, I try not to sound cocky, but I've trained Olympic teams. I've trained world championship teams. I've trained national championship teams. I've trained first round draft picks in just about every sport that you can imagine. I've trained collegiate athletes in just about every sport you can possibly imagine. I do have a really, really broad and lengthy experience. And I do think that should count for something. I think when you look at that, people should say, hey, this guy, he's spent a really long time doing this, and that opinion does have value. And I think what happens now is that people basically say, no, that it doesn't matter. Everybody's, and it's the same kind of thing that we're seeing all over the world. Oh, everybody's opinion matters. Everybody's opinion is the same. And that's just not true. Not in this. This is, I think, more of a meritocracy. And I'm going to be much more inclined to listen to people who have a high level of experience than I am going to be to listen to people who have a low level of experience. I don't think that's incredibly illogical.
I also take into account, like sometimes I'll tell people, even the podcast. I get to talk to you every couple of weeks, and we're kind of exploring different topics. And, we'll go to perform better. What are you still doing to stay abreast of, you're talking about, like, you always talk about, hey, there's a new guy, this new David Gray, and I've been starting to get, so, and then you have your spring seminar. Which, by the way, everybody, is the lineup is set for that. You have your spring seminar, and you bring in these people that you want to hear over the years, and you're learning from them. You go to perform better. You're going to hear a couple lectures, and so you're still learning, and we're still like thinking about it. And I think that's another thing when some of these people get in their bubble and they don't get out of it. Then that's another thing to think. Hey, this is also part of that experience that you have.
Right. And I think when people look at that and say, okay, I've spent a lot of the last 2 years touting primarily younger, like you said, David Gray, Jake Tura, Hunter Eisenhower, Tommy Monday, all these, hey, these are people that I'm currently learning from who are all under the 30 or under probably, right? And then a guy like Tony Holler, total opposite. This guy, he's high school coach, but a really smart high school coach. And now a lot of the internet world is woken up to Tony Holler. But I've had, in my mind, if you really do follow my career, I have a pretty strong history of learning. Whereas most of these people, again, the accusations against me on Instagram are that, oh, you're so set in your ways, you're such an absolutist. And it's like, no, if you really looked into kind of who is Mike Boyle, you would find out that he's a guy who really is a lifelong learner and who is a guy who's constantly, like you said, we're trying to figure out what the best program is. We're far from set in our ways. We wouldn't be doing the unilateral stuff that we're doing if we were set in our ways, right? We wouldn't be doing a lot of the things that we're doing if we were set in our ways. But people I think they want to posture and they want to create the controversy in kind of a vision that they have, like, okay, this is the way I'm going to position this thing. And it's interesting. And it was a classic. I posted that other internet meme too about, I used to like you and then you disagreed with my Instagram kind of thing. It's amazing. I probably got 5 comments who said, I've learned so much from you, but I unfollowed you. And I'm kind of like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
Because suddenly I learned a lot from you, but now you disagree with me. So I'm not listening to you anymore. And it's kind of like, that's really childish, right? Oh yeah, I read all your books. I understand. I've been following you for years, but this is where I draw the line. I draw the line on you disagreeing about barbell lifting because I like it. And you think that's not how you get better in any field. By suddenly we're thinking, okay, I'm not listening to this person anymore.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think we rip on social media a lot, but at the same time, I mean, you've had so many great discussions on Twitter that have led to strengthcoach.com discussions and Instagram even now that so I think there's a lot of good that have come from kind of looking at these posts and having some arguments and saying, oh, this guy made me think, and let me look a little bit more into what they're doing, and I think that's all part of it.
No question. And that's why I said I'm still a huge social media fan. I'm not getting off social media. I'm not going to be, I'm certainly not going to be intimidated by these people being negative with me or posting negative videos, because it is whether you like it or not, this is where the knowledge is happening via podcasts and via social media. It's, you can say it sucks, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah, podcasts I would say are better, but
Yeah, sure.
well, you're also getting it like how many times did we like there's a post on strengthcoach.com, we're not going to get into it, but about the FMS and has the FMS gotten out of favor? And really, Gray and I used to talk about this a lot when we would see each other. It's like all we were really doing for 5 years was putting out fires from all the contrarians, and you're not doing this. And I would be like, Gray, people are saying this, and he would come back with a video, or Leah
Right.
would send them. And I think that it's been part of the whole conversation, but I think it's really important, and I don't think people should shy away from it, and that's why we're going to sign a petition to get you back on Twitter.
Okay, I'm working on it.
There you go. Coach, thanks for doing this. We'll get to those other topics next time. We went a little overboard on that one, and it was
Okay.
great. So
All right.
good stuff.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you next time.
See you.